Welcome to the My Rules Are Better podcast. I'm Tom Barbalet. This is being recorded live on Skype with the one and only Barney Dicker. Hello, Barney.
Hi, Tom.
So, I've not really been recording podcasts, mainly because of the girls, but also because of a few issues that I haven't been able to successfully narrate through podcasts, which we can either try to do through this podcast or just give up and talk about other happier things. In terms of your podcast, Loco Ludus, I've seen a lot of interviews appearing in the feed. When we last spoke was probably about maybe 6 months ago. I didn't count it this time. Normally I do.
I think we might have spoken last directly in November.
Okay. So not quite the 6 month mark, but certainly interesting times nonetheless.
Yeah.
What's been going on in your rules philosophy, rules writing, rules participation?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this is. I'm really excited to talk to you about all the things that I've been up to, and I'm also excited to hear about what you've been up to as well, because, as you say, there's not been many podcasts from you.
Yes.
So I don't know. Should we start by talking about me and then switch and talk about you?
Certainly.
Yeah. Super. So, I mean, kind of for better or worse, the Loco Ludus podcast has kind of fallen into a monthly pattern. Like I say, that's kind of got pros and cons to it, but it just seems to be what's doable. And actually, one of the prompts for me in terms of getting episodes out and done has been interviews. You know, there's been some kind of relevance to certain conversations, and so it's good to have that as a motivator. I feel, and talking today is also, that's also an indicator of that. When you get the chance to actually bang heads together with people, it kind of works. What's interesting about it, though, is by no great design, just focusing on the interviews, that's meant that's been there because I haven't been finding the time to actually sit down and kind of articulate all of the game design stuff I've been doing, which has been lots. So
hence the forum here. So let's explore this.
Well, indeed. Yeah, okay. And you're very welcome to berate and chastise me for all of the things that I might say, or you might ask me to clarify what I'm talking about. But from my side, I've got the Alluvial Plains game and system that we're working on, and that's been the long project, I suppose. And then along came the League of Eternal Guardians, and that is still going. And that, I mean, I'm going to repeat myself perhaps from last time, but very briefly, that the system for League of Eternal Guardians was then taken into the Trickster's Net project, which took up a significant part of last year. And there are still some things to tie up with it. But this was this international game design exchange project for young people in Germany, where I am, Kempton specifically, and across Wales. And so that was going from June till the very end of September, basically. We were playing regular games and putting the campaign world together. And just after Christmas, we published it online in digital form. And at about the same time, I also sent the files off to a local printers. And last Monday, the 17th, which is my birthday, I went and picked up the print copies. And so next to a little collection of a little set of the Alluvial Plains dice, I will be sending you, Tom, a copy of Trickster's Net as soon as I can get to the post office. So
this will come up on my side as well. So anyway, continue. Please continue.
Yeah.
But thank you.
So yeah. So that was that was really good, really big, really special. It was great to really, put the thing together with a wonderful graphic designer who lives near me in Germany, who's just fantastic. Christian Tier, he's just great, and he did a lot of the preparatory work, and then I kind of tweaked this, tweaked that, changed that, jiggled that, which was a great process. So I learned an incredible amount about InDesign, putting the publication together, and then starting off this relationship with the printers, which is actually really nice, and they're super. We've had well over 1,000 people looking at it. We've had over 500 downloads, all of this on the Itch platform. And now we need to, start distributing out the physical copies. But, just that shift to actually having something in your hands, which is pretty much as you want it, or has come out pretty much as I would expect it. That's just great. And in terms of that project, it's wonderful to have an end result and to have had a good response for it, because I'm also working on developing a new youth exchange project, and it's so great to have Trickster's Net as an example of what can be done and what has been done. So that uses the same system as League of Eternal Guardians, and I created an SRD for that before it came out, and that system I've called the Counterpoint D6 system, and that can be got on my itch page too. And so I feel like the whole thing is getting kind of closer and closer to getting League of Eternal Guardians out, getting Alluvial Plains out, feeling clearer about design parameters and design choices. But the other thing is, Tom, and this is where you'll possibly wag your finger at me, is that I've decided to produce or get crowdfunding for a zine in Zine Month. A simple thing which I'm just writing, which won't be anything big bigger like League of Eternal Guardians, which has contributions from other people, or like Alluvial Plains, which has you and Spencer and David involved in it. And that's another kind of a test for me, I feel, in terms of, getting ready for these bigger projects. And I've started I'm going to use the Ko-fi or the Ko-fi platform to do the crowdfunding. Are you familiar with that platform vaguely, Tom?
I am not, but much of what you've said I'm not familiar with. So the fact that you can get people onto my perspective with regards to crowdfunding is, it's interesting actually, because this is part of talking to people who have successfully crowdfunded, which is part of my discussion as well. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I really don't know. Honestly, if you're getting people on your sites, that's the most important thing. If there are communities, which I clearly don't know about, that use, Itch and other things, by all means, you already have the source of people that are already familiar with your work. So far be it from me to say, Kickstarter or nothing. But I think, it is, anyway,
just to talk about the Ko-fi thing, mm-hmm. It's quite interesting, and I'm interested to see how it will serve my needs, or one's needs, because on the one hand, it's kind of primarily set up to be an alternative to Patreon, but it also can be used like a shop, and you can do crowdfunding on it. You pay, people pay up front, so it's not like Kickstarter where it's make or break. So that, of course, has implications. One needs to have a project that's within your scope, your budget to do anyway. But I think that makes more sense to me somehow. So I'm interested to see how that will go, and I'll happily, of course, I'll even insist that I send the link to you so that you can put them in.
Yeah, I'm rather curious that you haven't actually promoted any of this stuff to me up until this point of actually talking. But it seems like a failure just in and of itself. If I might wag my finger.
No. I tell you why. Because I was kind of skulking about in all of the discussions about Zine Month, which is a kind of a response to Kickstarter and their choice to move Zine Quest to August, maybe, and all of their stuff about Bitcoin or crypto or whatever it is that they're doing. So it was Thursday evening or Friday morning or something that I actually started the coffee account, and I just yesterday I kind of had a fiddle about with it, and I've had more of a fiddle about with it today, and I've literally just started sharing the project, the zine project today. So
no, I'm talking about all the other stuff you talked about going on last month and the month before, and anyway. But we'll continue on. We'll continue on.
But I mean, but alluvial plains, that's still going. You know about that. No, that is that. League of Eternal Guardians. You've set up the subgroup of the League of Eternal Sandwiches, right? Which is still
most definitely
is still there.
I reflect on the smells frequently. Yes,
indeed, and Trickster's Net, we have spoken about before. And so all of these other things are all, the updates to that are all little things that have popped up over the Christmas period. And I mean, I don't know if I'm fully dehibernated or...
believe me.
So,
yes. So are these, should I start talking about my...
Yeah, go.
Okay.
Yeah, go.
So
go for it.
I'm going to start with the good stuff for a change.
Yeah.
And I need to say, Spencer and David are... David in particular, David was a kind of slow creeper in terms of the friendship, but these are two people that are very central to my thinking with regards to last year. They both provided amazing feedback at different times. I mean, I'm literally trying to live David's dream of seeking out game centers of the United States and moving there. So they both had a really strong impact on me. And it made me realize that I actually have these people who, for whatever reason, because they've had successful games with me in the past, I guess, and are willing to put up with potentially future games, I'm developing quite an address book of people that are wanting to play these games. And the area that I've not really sought out is Australia. And sadly, Australia is actually full of people that want to play these games. And I've just completely exploited my address book in this regard. Last weekend, by surprise, I was contacted by my friend who lives in a garden in Yorkshire, quite a created environment with a road leading to it, but no other humans around it, Bob Mottram, who had historically worked on my simulation work. And he said he'd been looking at SimCLine and he wanted to solve some problems in it. So SimCLine now has all the maps. We're now looking at map versus memory management versus actual output versus everything. So SimCLine is now, having been neglected for many months, thanks in large part to my children, it is now in a stage where it's actually something bright and shiny, and with me working on it and with Bob working on it and the various parcels of Guinness and other things going to Bob's place to say thank you. So that thing has become now... And Bob wants to, I guess, own in some regard, or at least shop the maps once they're done, and has found half a dozen digital environments. So he hasn't really looked into gamers yet, as in tabletop gamers, but these maps are just absolutely gorgeous. And we've gone back and checked all the copyright, and we own all the copyright and this kind of stuff. But really, if you want to have almost, adding a 3 dimensions isn't particularly difficult, but individual identified buildings and train stations and just I was putting stuff on. I've got a big screen in my podcasting room, and I was going through it last night, and my wife just walked past the doorway and said, "That is absolutely stunning." And I said, "Yes, this is just central London, So I think the visual aesthetics, if nothing more, and the ability to play, I mean, we were talking about alluvial plains for World War II and this kind of stuff, but the ability to really treat this subject matter in a completely different way. Bob, I mean, really, the nature of the changes he made was just brute force. It was about 40 hours worth of donated work with the stuff that I'd already done. And he was able to get it to where it was just like visually stunning, which is just the nature of Bob's work. So that thing has become more than just something I'm working on. It's something that someone else is working on who has an end goal and, potential clients. So that has been a really interesting development.
Well, please send me a picture. I want to see this visually stunning.
Sure. I can start dropping you PNGs, which is the output that he produces. Cool. He identifies individual buildings, which means he picks colours for each building. So you have this tapestry of colour, which is individual buildings over the southeast of the UK in 1940. So I have the folks who are obsessed with pillar boxes. Also, I've joined their society. So, yeah, all this stuff is just... I mean, it reminds me that with a little water, a little sunshine, a lot of my ideas actually give something that is beautiful. So it was quite stunning. So these are the good things that have happened. The other thing is, you'll remember the miniature company and the hope to create miniatures and this kind of stuff. Yeah. Well, something has happened over the past couple of months, which has not been publicly talked about. I'm thinking of making YouTube videos about it because it's dramatically affected me. But the US Postal Service has stopped delivering to the United Kingdom, England in particular. And they didn't do this without telling anyone. They did this without telling anyone. So I have 4 parcels that I'm currently tracking, including one from Germany. They're all stalled in the US. So they're not even flying to their respective places. So when this happened initially, I started contacting people saying, you won't be getting your packages, I'm actively tracking it. But then I realized that much of this miniature company thing was based on having, maybe a month wait, but not 2 months plus unknown things. So I've gone back and contacted a variety of people, including folks that have run very successful Kickstarters, and said, okay, this is the new normal. What does this thing look like? So we've gone back to kind of base salaries, and now slowly we're starting to see if we can use FedEx with certain requirements to move stuff around. But it basically brought that whole thing to a kind of grinding halt and then a reassessment. I don't know. I think, for me personally, things have dramatically changed in the past 3 months.
So just can I just ask before we talk more about that? Can you still post things to me, say in Germany?
No.
Does Europe
not through US? No. Germany was cut early on, and now it's in a kind of fluttering stage. But I have a parcel coming from Germany to me that is currently stuck in the US, and last update January 6th. So my father tried, because my father is like this, to get me a package, and was able to successfully get me a package through the postal system. But Australia is different. Australia was more stop-start earlier. Since then, it's all been going fine. But you could find a page, which I have found and since promoted, on the Postal Service website, which actually indicates when these shut-offs and opens actually start. So my view is hold on for those things, or I'll send you FedEx money if it works.
I see.
Because I don't think there's any... So this is obviously Omicron, and certainly through my professional life, I've not seen anything like this level of devastation with my professional colleagues as well. So we are now, having had various contact scares and other things, we're now in the process of working out what this thing will actually look like. I have co-workers where one of their children mysteriously has COVID. They've got 4 children, one of them has COVID. So the whole thing is looking considerably more... Yeah, sorry.
And does this come down? Does this come down to the pandemic? Is that what it is?
That's what... Well, they're not flying to England specific... Well, they're not flying to England and 30 or more other countries because of the pandemic. Ironically, things seem to be getting out of England. So my view is that the US postal system, I think it's now run by the employees exclusively. And I've had I had a postal staff person dance outside the front of my door when I went through these things through the week. And I just that's it, right? FedEx is getting money from now on. We're not even touching these people. So basically, it's an employee-run organization. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to document the way they behave. And my view is until maybe 6 months, maybe a year, who knows how long just the backlog they've created will take to go through. Anyway, So post out, these things out, artifacts out, all the things that, made this pandemic remotely worth living. Plus the ability actually to get material. I mean, that's what it really is. It's, you can't make miniatures if you can't do anything. You got to get material in and out. So that has all been shelved. And I've literally gone through aspects of my life and said, okay, so we're just putting on hold for a year. And thankfully, the core folks I was working with, which is always the problem here, is the humans, have all agreed to, with the general vision, they're all agreeing to, just bunker style with salary. So thankfully all that folds down into something which is quite manageable still. But it does change the general nuance associated with things. So there have been a series of these things coming up, particularly with working through with individuals to see what states they'll be in and these kind of things. So there's been a lot of HR, human resources related stuff rather than visionary related stuff. And also working out, is this for 6 months? Is this for a year? Is this for 2 years? Is this for, what are we actually dealing with here? And of course, while Granny's getting ill, no one's actually talking about what happens to things like the postal system. So there's no knowledge about this in a community, unfortunately. So who knows what it looks like. But from my perspective, we now need to assume we're moving to FedEx. We're starting that early on, as anticipated, 4 to 6 times more expensive, as anticipated, lots more paperwork. But if we can actually get things reliably from A to B, it's a different world. But it's still a considerably more expensive world. And when you're dealing with literally, basic survival, you've got to work out where these things actually lie. So we're now in this investigation phase, which will probably last a month or so. And hopefully the Postal Service will deliver some things within that time. They haven't yet. But the other thing you see is these are all things that are documented. You normally, in good times, your parcel will go through place to place. It would document the place and the state of the parcel and the parcel when it arrives, right? They don't log places anymore. They've stopped doing that for 3 months now. So, I don't want this to become let's talk about the Postal Service and how it's failing podcast, but it has been a major impact. And so let's return to alluvial plains briefly. Yeah. You and I had a conversation last year associated with, I'm interested in expanding alluvial plains magic, also more notion, perhaps channelings of just like us, but more the notion that there is an overarching anti-magic, kind of multinational force coming predominantly from ancient Rome. In the process of doing that, I read histories, particularly of the invasion of ancient Rome, that made it seem considerably more Python-esque. And in the process of doing this, I went back and kind of Pythonized major points in the invasion and departure of ancient Rome. I actually think the colonies, so to speak, were considerably more expensive and troublesome than has been. I mean, it's obviously been documented, but the notion that there was something Python-esque going on in the Roman invasion, in particular, the motivations and the actual invasion itself, just seems to me to be like eye-wateringly funny in a variety of different ways. So I've explored some of that with regards to the new development and written up various histories, and in particular, still thankfully, because we can get illustrations digitally, worked on that. But the idea was anyway that I perturb alluvial plains in a particular direction, and I was told very firmly no by Mr. Dicker. Like, this is not happening. You can go and molest your own rules, thank you very much. Which is basically what I did. And ironically, leading into this very podcast series, when I started recording and you started listening and then participating, was this idea that I had a rule system that I'd written and then actually discovered through the early parts of the book. So I got that rule system, started dusting it off, started reading this Python-esque stuff, started paying illustrators to illustrate the minstrels landing on the coast and all this other beautiful stuff. And then I put this work down, and actually I worked on it through the end of year period, but nothing too serious. But I have been able to gather together. So I'm in the process of taking the humour Here Comes Rome stuff, and then also looking at the rule system, in particular the motivating rule systems. So RuneQuest, Dragon Warriors, early Warhammer Fantasy roleplay, all of which I have the rules of physically here too. So I've been going through a renaissance while dealing with these other things, in specifically to get this thing together. The plan was to test it with these evil Australians early, which still might be the plan, and get it into something which I think is worthy to pass back to the originators of said idea. So it was very curious correspondence you sent me, particularly because I think you didn't realise that I already had a rule system simmering for the purpose, potentially. And I quickly said, that's this rule system, and here it is, and we'll work on it accordingly. Unfortunately, I don't know what actually... I mean, you have children. You've raised your children to a sufficient level that they seem to be almost self-sufficient in their time frames. But
every day a little bit more. Every day a little bit more.
Very good. I'm actually really getting into the parenting side of things and easily stopping podcasts and other things because, quite frankly, times are just strange. There's just so much bizarre nonsense that's going on currently. And it's been an interesting experience the past few months, and I think I don't regret slowing things down dramatically because basically the world has slowed down dramatically in my experience. But one thing I am doing, thankfully, is having a lot of really interesting evening reading material, some of which my spouse finds rather curious to. But no, I really have been, and obviously through this period of time, of course, the knighthood of Ian Livingstone, which has struck me because it reminds me that only 3 short years ago, I spent my life planning around that and still have the residual elements of that. And, it's, I've had co-workers actually that have been able to break into England over the past few months, but I've basically put off all travel just to weather the current situation. And I think, particularly things like, a majority of the co-workers you need to work with are uncontactable because they're sick with COVID. What do you do? These kind of realities have become, and also, that's the new normal is forever changing. So
it is, and I've heard that on the British Isles, including the island of Ireland, there's lots of talk of lifting more and more and more restrictions, and this is at the same time that Germany is seeing more cases and so on.
Well, they're seeing more cases too. That's the undisputable fact, is that they're talking about lifting restrictions because
to go back to the whole alluvial plains discussion. For the clarity of your listeners, and perhaps for us to just clarify our exchanges about it, our exchange has been really fundamental for me working on the system, which I call the Vantage system. We've talked about the easy dice, as you call them, the easy dice structure, which you got that lovely easy name for the easy dice, and I'm still just kind of stuck with 3, 2, 1.
Doesn't roll off the tongue quite the same, does it?
No, exactly. Yeah. So just for anyone who's listening to this and doesn't know what we're talking about 6-sided dice primarily.
Sometimes 12.
Where you've got, say, on a 6-sided dice, you've got 3 faces of one value, 2 faces of another, and 1 of another.
Yes.
And of course, you can, if you've got 12 or whatever, you can modify that. So our discussion about those dice dynamics goes back a long way. 3
years, probably.
Yeah, something like that. And that for me was that was the start of that core mechanic for the Vantage system, and alluvial plains was always the primary setting. And so to get into that to progress through that in discussion with you, where I was working on the alluvial planes or the Vantage core rules, and you were working on the Just Playing Chaos Easy Dice rules, and
that was never really the case with me. I mean, to be frank, the Easy Dice are an interesting dynamic which could be mathematically applied. However, I went very quickly back to just regular dice with Just Plain Chaos because there was nuances that I needed in the gap, so to speak, of easy dice. But you always want something that people can quickly pick up. Easy to learn, hard to master. Yeah. So you want that dynamic if possible. And I think there are still flaws with the easy dice that I cultivate. But when I think of Vantage, I think of dice pools, and I think of dice in terms of an additive sense rather than And obviously the individual dice mechanic is important. But I think that's what drives me with less so thinking, I mean, obviously it is easy dice on some level, but more associated with dice pools and the mathematics of dice pools.
Yeah. But I mean, what I'm talking about here is just how our conversations have been, I think a valuable string to the bows of both of those projects, whether, whatever's been kept or discarded. And so, with the alluvial plains setting, partly responding to your own, your kind of, your encouragement that I should focus on specific projects and not let them kind of just span out.
Which has been what's happened, even up until this day, right?
Well, this is the thing. So the Vantage system, if you like, the reason why the Stone Age setting I wanted to be the first test case, if you like, was because I felt like, I don't want to say it has a simplicity or a purity or something, but it's
romanticized by a good number of thinkers in a good number of ways, and because it's unknown, it has a mysticism associated with it which you can build on.
Well, I'm talking about not having submachine guns and motorbikes and aeroplanes. That's what I'm driving.
And the early Romans are exactly that.
Well, there you go. But see, the point is that what I've been wanting to do is get the Vantage system as a core system slick, and then also having a clear, resolved setting for that system. Now, when you suggest taking us out of the Stone Age towards the Roman era, I think that's a great idea, but it's not alluvial plains. That's my thinking. And so for me, the question is simply, Tom, do you want to use the Vantage system or an adaptation of it for the Roman game, or is this your own thing which goes back to perhaps what you had in the Easy Dice setup, or whatever, and whatever is doable, isn't it? It's all good.
I wish I had that email quickly to hand, because I think reading out the email would illustrate to the listeners perfectly where you were coming from. And no, look, I don't fault you. My view is that actually owning something and feeling like you own something is perfectly fine. It was a very curious email to read initially. But at the same point, it also missed the post-Britannia rule system. And the potential for that.
Hang on.
Yeah.
No. You see, so, I mean, just again, I mean, of course I have a sense of ownership for alluvial plains, but I'm very happy for that to be our group effort. What I feel I have the ownership of is the Vantage system, if you like, because that's the core thing that I've been working on kind of on my own, but if you like. And not at all, I've not at all forgotten your Britannia rules at all, because we've talked about that a lot. We've talked about that many times before, and I've even been privy to that whole debate where you said, "I've got the rules. I found the rules. Oh no, they're not the rules. Oh, I think I've got the rules back again." Is that correct?
I don't know. The whole thing was kind of strange to me. And it's interesting, actually, because I have literally in front of me, I have I don't even know what it was. I think it's Gremlins inspired, or at least the creatures are Gremlins inspired. This is large text in a book, which is games rules written without actual... I mean, this is games rules prior to games rules. So as a child, I was constantly... I don't know how old I was when I wrote this. I don't know. Let me see. Maybe 6, 7? So I was constantly writing these books of rules where they were as much a representation... I mean, the thing about the Britannia rules when they returned to me was just the sheer level of detail, the extreme. And we've had on folks such as Matthew and others who I've wanted to get back on, who've talked about their own experiences, obviously Chris Abbott as well, of actually writing rules. And not just writing rules, but creating environments and the whole breadth that people went to. I guess even as a small child, I was doing the same thing without necessarily the fixation on rules. So it's as much a story as it is a game system, and it's as much an exploration of, I don't know, it's just, as an artifact, it is a thing that is more than the sum of the stuff that I described it previously. And in going through it, in particular, just the notions of class hierarchy, how you break class hierarchy, how you escape from class hierarchy. I mean, these kind of things are... anyway, so refinding the rules...
My big question for you, Tom, is are you now going to publish that as you wrote it?
No.
At the age of 6?
Definitely not.
Or are you updating this?
It's completely updated for a modern audience, yeah. There's no point in publishing something that is so esoteric even I don't understand it. I mean, I think... No, the whole purpose of rewriting these rules is actually to put myself... And this is why I'm going back to the original source material as well. This is why I'm going back to Dragon Warriors and the first edition of, Warhammer Fantasy, role play, and all these kind of books that was just so seminal for me at the time. But again, it is a very strange thing. Anyway, so yes, the evolution of actual current contemporary rules that people will pick up versus this thing is more an artifact than it is anything. And really, I find myself taking photographs of various pages and just reflecting upon those pages. But the emotion behind it, which I think we talked about when the rules were lost, the emotion behind it is independent of all of this. So to have the original artifact back just brings the emotion to a different state. But anyway, with regards to the meetings that we used to have, of which this was supposed to be one, of Spencer, David, you and I, particularly when you're not around, are just really fascinating. And this is the thing, I think it was just David and me chatting, waiting for people to turn up initially, that made me realise that David either had completely trolled me and gone through all my background podcasts and stuff, or actually was genuinely interested in very similar things than I was interested in. So I think
he's just an absolutely wonderful person who has this kind of magical, it's like he ate a long wave radio as a child or something, and you can just tune in to anything and everything. Yeah,
his father is a gameskeeper. Like, so the whole thing is just anyway. So yeah, these anyway. So I think you have a powerhouse, not stupid me, but everyone else. You have a powerhouse of people that you could be doing amazing things with. So I guess if I could say anything coherent in this, and clearly I haven't been able to up until now, it is utilize the powerhouse that you have gathered to create more than you have originally produced, I think. Because I think certainly the fear, and I wish I had this email, it's got to be one of these. The problem is we've had so much correspondence in the past few. Yeah. Anyway, but
do you want me to try and find it? And then,
it doesn't matter. The thread was very clear.
Yeah.
Get your meddling hands away from my game.
No. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. But the point is, let's let's get the Stone Age game done.
Oh my
let's
goodness!
Get that done.
Well, you've got agreement here. That wasn't in the email, but let's get agreement about that.
Well, no, but that's what I mean. We can't stretch the Mesolithic so far that we get to the Roman invasion of Britain. You know, and of course, all of these ages are, you know, arbitrarily, separated.
Yes.
You know, what is the Mesolithic?
Yeah.
But the point is that I do think, and I suspect this is partly why you see it as being in the context of the whole thing somehow, because it is a quantum, not a quantum. It is a noticeable shift from a Mesolithic environment to an Iron Age,
and the complete assault on every aspect. I mean, we were talking about magic initially, but the complete assault on that, and the way that mysteriously these things very beautifully are historically described as nice blends of just olive oil shows up mysteriously, and you know, these kind of things, versus actually the cultural ideological invasion that it was. And I think, so you're right, my brain just went ding, right, that's the point where all these things come together. Yeah. So
I think if we're talking about this kind of, you know, perturbation rather than contestation, perhaps, or something. But I think, exactly, that kind of, what would happen if we brought the Romans into this much more Neolithic, if you like, or I mean, it should be the Bronze Age, really, shouldn't it? Bronze, Iron Age, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, what happens when we bring those two traditions into dialogue with each other? But I think that suggests a whole lot of new mechanics and a whole lot of new background and kind of game dynamics, which are beyond the scope of alluvial plains. But I absolutely say, let's do it. If you feel, and I think what I'm trying to say is, I think you also appreciate, or you find inspiration in that invasion as a design space. So
I have the email up. So I'm wondering whether you should read it or whether I should read it. Why don't I read it, since I have it up?
Yeah, you read it. Yeah, go on.
It begins, "Hi, Tom. I have a thought, a great one in my opinion. How about you develop your own Easy Dice Celts and Romans RPG, which I work on with you? This would form a labour exchange. You'll work on alluvial plains, for mine on Celts and Romans. We credit each other, of course, on both projects. You take on Easy Dice is great, and develop that as somewhat standalone system makes sense to me, whereas radically altering the Vantage system seems, for want of a better word, pointless. Once the Celts and Romans is developed, we will see how we position it in our collective stables. I think Celts and Romans would be really cool. I'd love to work on that. The opportunity to play Celts and Romans would be a lot of fun." Here again, Barney has created this game, Celts and Romans, which is let's continue. I think Celts and Romans would be really cool. I'd love to work on that. The opportunity to play Celts and Romans would be a lot of fun. What do you think, B? And that was the email, which I thought was.
I think that's a great email. I still stand by that email.
Very good.
But this is the other thing: is whenever you talk about running alluvial plains, you always talk about doing like a butchered rules version of it.
It's a butchered rules to start off with. This whole notion of the rules are given to me in purest form, and then, well, look, the first version of alluvial plains had nothing associated with fighting large animals or a battle. Sure. In fact, at every point that others have played alluvial plains in the mastering role, in the narrative role, they've always had to pause and really think when it comes to actually swords or arrows or slingshots flying. So, I mean, I think
no, I don't. No, I mean, I don't totally agree. I mean, to me, there's always been a provisional line between, you know, you can use your hunting ability if it's small animals, but if you're actually in combat with the animal, you're using that, and either you're using a missile or you're using a melee weapon, and that's how you derive the dice pools from that. So, to me, it's not that. It's not. There isn't that. of course, in the whole process of writing rules, things change and the play tests reveal things. And the big thing that I realized is that I haven't written like a game mastering section, which is just the most silly thing not to have done yet. So there's that, but I'm not assuming that the rules get to you in a pure state. I'm just making the point that if we're developing alluvial plains using the Vantage system as is or as needs to be tweaked, that's different to saying, right, well, I'm going to make individual ability rolls, or I'm going to do combat like this. And of course it's totally fine. You can do that, but what are we investing that work on the project? What are we investing that time on?
I think it's interesting that let's return to the butchered set of return to this concept.
Yeah.
When you have partial rules that are delivered to people getting others to play your game system.
I don't think the rules are that partial. I don't think they're that partial. I agree there are things that could be clarified, and there are a couple of tiny things that could be added, but they're not partial.
That was not David's experience either. I mean, what was particularly fascinating was watching David play it as well, and to get the sense that you can hear when people draw a breath, right?
Yeah.
Playing along perfectly fine, and then there's the breath drawing point, and then you see how it plays out, and then you have players, such as myself, ask questions like, how can we, what stage is the mammoth at in terms of its general well-being? And, I mean, I guess each individual, particularly those that you play with, and I'm hoping that David also explored this with a butchered set, it has to come together on some things. And I'm really fascinated, in fact, looking forward to the time that I can present a map of the southeast of England. And then, perhaps with David or perhaps with someone in Australia or maybe even you, explore this with a somewhat broken Lee Enfield as discovered in some bombed out crater and these kind of things. Because I think what's interesting is that it was through my experience with these butchered set of rules that I had created and was given, that I realized that combat is really, it has to be something which is pretty central to the game mechanic, irrespective of the way the individuals and the rules creator feel about combat. And I think the experience that I had through this was everything ran smoothly until there was an injured large animal involved. And, but even things like the slingshot that I used to fell the other tribesman who was hiding under a carcass.
I think what the system works in a slightly different way. And David is very, very familiar with D&D. He really knows that inside.
So now we're arguing about the butchered set that he did specifically.
What I'm saying is that the combat rules, if you are in combat, are pretty straightforward. What they're not necessarily is that similar to a lot of other systems. However, I think Dragon Warriors, for example, has a kind of damage differential.
Oh yeah.
And that's what the Vantage system is based on too. And so I think when people are used to certain things, and they haven't had the chance to actually think it through, that's when they need to draw breath. And I think David did a fantastic job, and I think you did a fantastic job when you've both run alluvial plains. But when I've run the game a lot, and of course I would say this as the person who's masterminded those mechanics. But combat is pretty straightforward. I think, if I'm right in remembering, Dave wasn't rolling anything for the mammoth.
Unknown.
So he treated
unknown. I mean, I don't think that was.
So that of course is a really key thing. That in a simpler way than a player character, the NPCs also roll, and if they beat you, if they outclass you in a round of combat, then they're damaging you, regardless of who started it. So I think David treated the mammoth like a kind of a static object.
Unclear, really, in terms of the actual experience that we had. I can't remember him explicitly saying, I'm rolling for the mammoth, but he could have been rolling dice that we didn't know about, and I think we really need to talk to the man himself associated with this.
Well, I mean, I have done, and that's sitting in the can, waiting to be put out as an episode. So
very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, I'll certainly look forward to listening to that one. Hopefully you cover other... I mean, yeah, anyway, hopefully you cover a lot of stuff.
I think this idea of using rules how you want is totally fine. I guess from my side, when you've said things like, I want to run a few sessions of alluvial plains using an alternative version of the rules, and it's set during the Roman invasion.
Okay, so let's look at the alternative system of the rules, because I guess my perspective on what I was talking about was actually just changing the magic rules and just making modifications of that aspect because I wanted to experiment.
But they've long been gone already, basically, or stripped right down, following the magic gate or whatever we call it.
That was only a few years ago. I mean, I don't necessarily think these things.
That was last year, Tom.
I know. Believe me. So I think that the magic gate seemed to be a whole lot of apologies on your part.
No.
Anyway, so so when we talk about the butchered set of rules, Tom was interested in exploring aspects of the magic, mainly more additive magic associated with, what I thought was interesting distinctions between the natives' magic and the Roman magic that they brought in, which I thought would just have been an interesting dynamic. It's interesting here that the vantage system, which stretches from Dark Ages, well, prehistory to World War II, could be damaged by just changing, or butchered by just changing the magic aspect of it. I guess my sense with Vantage was that I thought of it as a robust rule system that would allow for these kind of modifications. However,
well, go on.
However, it's perfectly within your rights to think of this crazed Australian butchering your rules and doctoring them and taking them on to other people, and not in any way representing you in the process, and no doubt having a good series of chuckles through it. So, I wasn't particularly... Yeah.
But Tom, I mean, I have a Vantage game that someone, a playtester in Japan, who lives in Japan, has created. And this is a kind of... it's a kind of grindhouse post-apocalyptic setting. And that's just sitting there. So if we can pull our fingers out with alluvial plains, then there's that. And I really like the idea that once people have got a set of the Vantage dice, that they can use them for other settings, and we can just put them out. So the idea of having Roman conquest is, I think, is fantastic. And just a little footnote on all of this with the counterpoint D6, which I developed for League of Eternal Guardians and for Trickster's Net, and I've started using in other places too. I've realised, I got to a certain point with that, I think, where I did feel like there was a robust set of core rules, and it's really interesting to see how different settings and different, I don't know, time periods, different
eras, yes.
or different capabilities can be used in different ways. So you can completely strip one thing out and then add something else in place. And, and I'm kind of on to maybe the fourth different iteration, fifth, I don't know, of thinking about the basic core mechanics. And so I think the whole magic thing with alluvial plains, I think that was a really important and interesting process to go through. And I don't think there was anything wrong, or I don't think there's anything inherently wrong or right about any of them. I think what's interesting is coming to the right feeling or the right balance of how to use the magic. And I think,
and could be revisited at any time. Like, this is not something that is over 2 years ago or a year ago or however long it was. This is something actually that probably, if it sticks in the side of any players, merits some house ruling. Anyway.
Yeah, and I do think exactly. I think a magic supplement would be ideal. And I think it's interesting that other Stone Age games seem to have this I don't want to call it a problem, but this split where you can kind of choose to have magic or not. And I think we've, I look forward to our next meeting, perhaps where we kind of come back to this, and because I updated the character sheet after our last chat, yours and mine and Spencer's, and so I think it feels like the magic has, or I don't know what even to call it, the shamanics, the spirituality, has the providence, has. I think it's found a good place where it's there, but it's not. It's. I think now it's come to fruition. It's now more in. It's more sewn into the general mechanics, and we don't need to have a different character sheet for a shaman. We can now have one character sheet that will satisfy you, Tom. And
well, let us hope. Hard to imagine, but it must exist, perhaps.
So I'm really excited about what you will produce. And my question to you is, what's going on with Just Plain Chaos?
So that exists as
finished.
The current life is mainly like, what parts of it are true, right? So I guess my perspective with that is, I thought of returning to it because it exists as finite bodies of work. However, if ever there were a time to launch a post-apocalyptic rule system, I think this might not be the right time. So,
I think this could be exactly the right time. It's what people really want, maybe.
Well, yeah, maybe. Unfortunately, I'd like to move myself out of the Just Plain Chaos rule system.
Okay.
And once I'm out of the Just Plain Chaos rule system, where I can actually imagine a future where there may be a possibility in the future of actually physically meeting at least one of you, maybe just one. I'm hoping maybe just by chance to potentially meet David. He seems to be the easiest of the three of you. But yeah, let's work towards. But yeah, let's move out of the Just Plain living in the Just Plain Chaos rule system, and then I'll see where it is. That seems to be my answer to many things currently, but with Just Plain Chaos, it is specifically that there is. Anything that you could break down and actually use currently towards your own survival, I think has too much. And also as we discussed on, I think it was put out in your podcast a year or so ago, in this very city that I now find myself living in, urban terrorism has rewritten itself again. I think it's perhaps. It would be tone deaf for me to release Just Plain Chaos at this time for a number of reasons.
I think they're following you, Tom.
Believe me, it certainly feels that way for a portion of the time. Yeah, no, I think Just Plain Chaos, unfortunately, living it, need to get out of it. Once out of it, potentially return to it.
Too real. It's too real.
Yeah, that's why I'm digging into old Citadel and related fantasy currently, because that, thankfully, thanks to Ian Livingston, I do not live in currently. But as soon as Nurgle and Slaanesh turn up, then all bets are off. That's fine.
Okay, good. And of course, we're planning on starting our Alluvial Plains meetings again at the beginning of February, aren't we?
Amen. Maybe with a game or two somewhere through there. I think someone was owed a game somewhere through there. So yeah.
Well, I was going to run one. That was going to be the December one, and then you were ill, and David had to get his booster jab.
Yeah.
So I still feel inclined to.
Yeah. Definitely
to run a game, and then I can show everyone how easy the.
Am I allowed to use the word butchered to describe your implementation of the rule system?
Well, I mean, I would say to you, my rules are better.
I think they're butchered, but I think you're like a secret butcher that does your own butchering and then comes and says, "You see these perfect rules I have before you." Anyway. Pleasure as always, Barney, taken in a wide variety of different directions. Thank you.
Absolutely. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Amen. Amen.